A Light Within Darkness Chapter 81, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. There was nothing that could be said to properly describe the wealth and splendor within the governor's palace. The very floor was of a spiritual obsidian material that would be perfect for making weapons, treasures, and especially furnaces of both alchemical and the blacksmithing variety. But beyond the splendor of the riches in every corner, there was a vivid ugliness to the perfection and opulent wealth. Namely, the once human now lobotomized servitors that were once beautiful human women, were now twisted automation weapons that sought to kill me with powerful lost fire rounds from their replaced arms and shoulder-mounted cannons. I didn't hesitate to destroy the servitors, as not only did they have no consciousness, as I couldn't even feel a soul from their forms anymore, but their laser and thus heat-based weaponry were just an annoyance. The first servitors were just using lost weapons. But as I went deeper into the governor's palace, I found many a great material treasure or even weapons and artifacts that pulsed to my senses of having some underlying power I would need to find out. It was honestly like I was a protagonist who just finished wiping out his first sect and was gleefully having fun and looting the sect's treasury. Though the resistance became greater and greater the deeper and higher I went into the spire. The lost guns became lost cannons until they switched to plasma weapons that I had no doubt came from the Tau. It's funny how heresy and xeno-cavorting wasn't as heavily enforced upon the greatest compared to the lessers, but once again, the plasma fire, although more forceful, wasn't an obstacle to my looting that didn't even let the floor escape my grasp. Freeze lower filth. A high-pitched voice screamed through a Vox speaker, making my hand that was about to land on a mounted Space Marine helmet freeze in mid-air as the voice continued to screech. Get your begotten lowborn hands away from my treasuries and go back to fighting the monsters outside for me. The voice continued and I looked around for some hidden camera and honestly, it was impressive that I couldn't find it. I responded blandly. Oh, most greatest of apologies, great lord, but the acting general has declared that the treasures must be moved off the planet as we are evacuating. I said, dramatically playing it up, and for a moment there was silence. Then the voice came through distantly, as though farther away as the voice screeched through. Go, damn it, go. Get to the landing pad, they must be running a loop or something through the video feed. I will not allow some up-jumped hive rat to make away with my bloodline's vaunted accomplishments. That seemed to be that, with no other voices coming through the Vox. I shrugged and continued my looting, killing any servitors and defense systems through. It was interesting how there were literally zero humans here. Besides the already soulless servitors, I didn't run into a single human guard, slave, or otherwise oddly. I was busy using my sword to pop out a more stubborn piece of the ground, and with a loud hissing noise, one of the motion-activating doors opened, and I perked up, looking for another servitor or maybe somehow a demon or something had managed to teleport in. But nope, I saw something that would make Grom the Paunch sit forward and call the lump of flesh a fat ass. The governor was sickening to look upon, both with physical senses and beyond, as I could all but taste the decay of morals and degradation of mentality upon his form. But those thoughts were abandoned as I chuckled a hearty thing as I popped my neck at what I saw carrying the massive tub of lard upon his palanquin. I can see the chains that bind you to his grasp, little demonette, I said with mirth clear within my voice as I could see with my cultivation senses a chain of harsh light that wrapped around the throats of all four demonettes that were attached to four rings that screamed of power to me. As I took in the demons' forms and their forms were translated into my view, I couldn't help but burst into laughter as I realized those enchanted rings had twisted the slainish demons and forced them into a more humanoid form without their multiple arms and other unnatural attachments. All but besides for all four of them, they instead of horrible mutations, had two long ribbon-like tendrils hanging off their back, and a sight made me realize what they looked like. The four of them all looked like different Evelyn skins from League of Legends. And dear all the gods, I couldn't help but shudder at the realization that Evelyn was a slainish demon to a fucking T. Oh, dear. The governor muttered, seeing me there in front of him. And realizing all too quickly that he would need to silence me for seeing his pet slainish demons. Even as he opened his fat gob to speak, I flashed faster than his mechanical eyes could allow his augmented body to react, and with a swing of my sword, I cut off his single flesh hand and moving it away from him as I then dashed away as 8 lashing tendrils from the demons sought to pincer me in a beautiful, perfectly timed assault. But as I held the fat hand and dashed away a dozen meters, I spun across the ground to hold up the hand that was within my own hand and thus connected to my own will. He doesn't hold your leash anymore, wanna kill him or want me to? I asked with a small smile, and without even a beat, the Coven Evelyn lookalike swung her lash to the side, and it cut off the governor's head without a single second wasted for the corrupt bastard to get a word out. As that single slainish demon killed their former master, as of course was the norm, the other three dashed forward, obviously to kill me to prevent me from taking over their wills. But they were only lesser demons of slainish, things I literally ate for fucking breakfast with my chaotic evil devouring physique. With a flex of my will, my cultivation, and the power of my soul, those corrupt manifestations of the concept of excessive pleasure and sadism crashed face first to the ground and moaned at the sweet agony I gave them under the weight of my power. Well, this is most certainly interesting, I muttered as I took in the 4 rings. I could read the spiritual powers within the rings and knew the 4 rings were a proper set of 4 instead of 5 due to the perfect connections they formed, and then my mind wandered. What was a race that had 4 fingers that had major dealings with chaos or spiritual entities at all? I eyed the rings with a great deal more weight and suspicion as I realized with a moment of doubt that the old ones, being massive frog-like creatures, had 4 fingers. As much as I wanted to deny this was an artifact from the old ones, but honestly, for a set of rings that could bind 4 spiritual beings with your own willpower, and even that fat bastard was able to control 4 slainish demons without being corrupted into a gibbering chaos spawn. That meant this was likely an artifact from the old ones. Now the real question is, do I stuff the walking sadism fetish into a maid's outfit? Or do I simply munch on you 4? I muttered as the ground became filled with shadows that locked the demons further into place, as I could feel the planet was already pulled into the warp, and thus, now was the perfect time to yeet myself into another direction within the warp.